welcome to another episode of the Hoops Boys podcast. As always, my co-host with the most hosts, James the Jet, and yours truly, America's favorite bitch-ass white boy, CProc. We are joined, as always, by our guest expert analysts, I almost combined your names there. Greggers and the Shaddillac. Sometimes they're one person. They certainly agreed a lot more in the premiere this season than they ever did in the past. So maybe they are one person now. Who knows? Partner, what we got to start off today, this month show with?
We want to talk about some teams that got off to a hot start. And I'll be remiss not to mention a team who Shad was high on in the first episode about their offseason and that they were going to be pretty good this season. So I'm going to let Shad be the introductor of this team. Shad, who we got?
Utah Jazz, they're definitely surprising. I didn't think they would have, the best record in the West, off to this hot start. I thought they were going, full on tank mode. I did think they had some pieces, with Sexton, Markkanen, and Clarkson and Conley, but I also thought that they would, somehow, buy out Conley, trade Clarkson and just go on full tank mode for Wembanyama or Henderson. But they Coach Will Hardy, he's done a great job. I would say definitely Coach of the Year so far. He's former Celtics assistant. Lauri Markkanen and is definitely having like all-star, caliber year. Jordan Clarkson is not far behind. I am, kind of scared that, like I said, might be fool's gold. Like when it comes down to the stretch, they, peter out and then they don't end up with a good draft pick. Or they do end up making the playoffs and they're one of those teams that, they're out first round, kind of like what they've kind of been like in the past years with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But it is an exciting team, to watch. It's one of those teams that, I guess just has good chemistry, good coaching. I know Danny Ainge is probably, pulling his hair out because he's been known to kind of tank, when they have these big prospects. But the Utah Jazz, I think, is the biggest surprise of the year so far.
Yeah.
I agree.
We always say in the past, the worst place to be in the NBA is just treading water on the bicycle.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you're alluding to, a bad place for them to be at the end of the year, and hopefully they're not. But what you notice looking at the roster, and a lot of it is the pieces they just happen to throw together, following all those trades and whatnot, shipping off their stars. But it's really just a success of the sum of the parts, which the NBA of late, we haven't seen that. We're just used to seeing the superstar teams. So this is almost kind of a refreshing throwback to teams that were built to be good on a collective basis.
Because, yeah, you could look at that roster and you look at that roster and you don't think top of the West. Like, although it's early, but still you don't think like top of the West at all.
Yeah, you definitely don't. But I guess maybe they're thinking, maybe a superstar, maybe want to go play for them, somehow they could, I don't know, maybe get like a LeBron. I don't know. I doubt it. But one of these superstars that are just tired of playing on a losing team, and then they trade some of these parts for a big superstar because I don't think they'll ever get anybody in free agency. Maybe they just kind of gave up on, tanking and getting these draft picks and, they try a different route.
Yeah.
I think for me, their season's still, it's way too early, but they've put themselves in an advantageous position because like Markkanen, which Shad touched on, Markkanen is looking like that's looking like a steal. He's looking like a real deal player right now. So him aside, you have a lot of veteran leaders who, if they, continue on a youth movement, you have guys like Kelly Olynyk, you have Clarkson, Beasley, like these kids are Rudy Gay even have been the bench. Like they have some guys who know how to win in the league. They had some tutelage to the younger kids. On the flip side, because they're playing well, they're going to have marketable guys come trade deadline.
Yeah.
So I don't think Ainge has any false illusions that they're going to win the title. No, nothing like that. But I think it puts them in even better position because A, they're competitive. It gets their fan base motivated. And B, they have pieces that they're playing well. I mean, I believe Conley and Clarkson in particular, I believe they may be on expiring contracts. Like those are people are going to want those guys come the stretch run.
Absolutely.
So I just think their success is actually going to help them in that regards because they can, if they decide they want to blow it up mid-late year, they can easily do that without sacrificing the future. So well played so far. But Markkanen to me has been like, again, what Shad said, he looks like the real deal right now. He looks like he's taken his game to a new level and someone you could potentially, I'm not saying being the cornerstone, but a piece you can build around. So
Absolutely.
yeah, A+ to the Jazz.
Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but how is it any kind of a black eye on Chicago that they couldn't figure out, and I guess even Cleveland, that they couldn't figure out how to use Markkanen? And the Jazz have turned him into a star.
Personally, I would say more Chicago because Cleveland was running into an issue with, size and spacing to begin with, right? I mean, they're already playing Jared Allen, Mobley. I can understand more that he's a similar part to some of what Cleveland has. Me personally, I would say it's kind of a hit on Chicago because I didn't really understand myself. I thought it was a little early to, like, if nothing else, the guy could shoot the ball, and he brings size. So I mean, Cleveland, I can't argue what they've done. Chicago, I personally, I would say that's looking like a mistake. Yes.
I feel like you said, like when he was on the Cavs, he didn't really have much opportunity to show like what he can do. And now on the Jazz, where he's getting 30 plus minutes, you really could see like, oh, he's a weapon, he's.
Yeah.
But another team I want to talk about that is really gotten off to a hard start in the West is the Sacramento Kings. Get this. They have the highest offensive rating since the NBA merger. And they've been looking really good. De'Aaron Fox has the one knock on his game was his 3-point shooting. He's become more efficient in that. Greg, you were pretty high on this team as well. What do you see from the Sacramento Kings that's gotten them off to this hot start?
Right off the bat, what you touched on, De'Aaron Fox, it almost felt like the last year he had kind of mired and almost taken a step back. And I think there were question marks, rightly so. Does he take another step? And I think personally for me, that has been a big difference. You touched on the 3-point, which was an issue, his shooting. He's shooting over 38% from three. If he's anywhere close to that with his speed, because he was the book on him, it was becoming easier to defend because you lay off of him. You know how quick he is to the basket. If you're not afraid of him shooting the ball, now that he's, like I said, he didn't even have to be that high, but to be at 38%, he's looking like the real deal as a lead star for the team. Yeah. And I mean, I think that number one is that's been the biggest factor. And they brought in, you just allude to the offensive efficiency. Kevin Huerter has gone over there. He's literally shooting over almost 50% from three.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's not like he's taking two a game. He's guns blazing. Right. So I think for once they've drafted fairly decently. Keegan Murray's been a difference maker. Sabonis obviously was a stabilizing piece that they haven't had. I mean, that's still tough trading Halliburton, and who knows long term. But for the immediacy now, I think Sabonis, the team's been so bad for so long that they've gotten tired of it, and they've made it clear that they even to attract free agents going forward, you need to have some success, right? The stars aren't going to want to go to a doormat all the time,
right?
And on top of that, I don't know if you've the team seems to have a little buzz, like in the city, the fans. Have you seen they do the victory beam now? So when the Kings win, they have this huge purple beam that it almost looks like a Batman calling, but but you know what? For a team that's been down like them, it's creating a buzz.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's an excitement and a positive attitude for the team. And I think for a front office that a couple of years ago we alluded to was such a mess. It seems like they're starting to go the right direction. And I think,
agree.
For as many bad years as they've had, it's a good start. So things I think are looking brighter for them for the first time in a while.
And that's their team nickname, the Beam Team.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And I heard, I think I forgot it was Barkley or Shaq making fun of me the other night. But again, they're talking about the Kings, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, it's excitement. It's like, oh, look, the Kings won if they see the light in the air. Well, there was no light for a long time. So even if they had the beam back then, it wasn't going on.
They were 6 feet under. That's what they were.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with Greg. Pretty much this team has a great balance. They have like six players in double figures, and they just bring excitement. They say often sells tickets, but it's selling tickets and they're actually winning. De'Aaron Fox, he's looking like a true perennial all-star right now. I don't think he's ever made an all-star team. He will. I'm pretty certain he will make it this year. He might even be in the MVP race right now. Sabonis, he's stepped up. I always thought he was kind of slacking as like number 2, number 3 guy. He seemed to step up. So I guess he might be in the right system now. And then they just got a bunch of shooters. They got Monk, they got Herter, people like that. And Keegan Murray, he seems to be doing pretty good as a rookie. Might be in top of the rookie race right now. So it seems like almost like the Utah Jazz. Like they have a bunch of players that you don't think would do well together, but they're just gelling and they're shooting the lights out right now.
That one thing too that I just forgot to mention. You're right on Malik Monk. Monk, number one, has had a very good year, but there's a couple games where Fox has been out. They've had some guys out, and Monk has actually had some huge games when they've been missing that contribution. So they're deeper than they've been in a while. They have guys who can, put some points on the board when their stars have been out. So that was another big play so far.
And I'm also like, Sabonis was kind of a cast off from Indiana, and he's found his role in Sacramento and doing what he had been doing in Indiana, and it's working very well with all these other pieces. Speaking of Sabonis, his old team we kind of thought they were just a cast off team after last year, and they're right now they're right in the middle of that 3 through 6 kind of, are they contender, aren't they type of area, with a couple other teams, or at least one other team. I mean, Cleveland, of course, made the playoffs last year, and then they had Donovan Mitchell. So I don't know if you so much say they're a surprise. But Washington, I mean, our old buddy Kristaps Porzingis is now Bradley Beal's number 2, running around DC. And Indiana, other than Halliburton, you're looking at a bunch of names of who knows who this is, and I didn't know this person had anything left in the tank. So as far as the also rans that aren't Boston or Milwaukee in the East right now, what do we think of Indiana and Washington actually showing a pulse in the early going?
I'll start. For Indiana, I think it's Tyrese has been playing. He's been balling. And then the rookie that they have, Benedict, I don't want to butcher his last name.
Mathurin.
Mathurin, yeah. He said he's going to be better than LeBron, and I ain't gonna say all that, but he's been hooping as well. And also good coaching over there as well. And as far as the Wizards, my boy Kristaps is playing well, but also I can't remember his name right now. He was on the Lakers, now he's on the Wizards.
Kuzma
is balling. He's balling. He's playing really well for the Wizards, and they're a surprising team out of the East.
On the Pacers, who the heck is Jalen Smith? He started every single game. He's averaging almost 11 points, almost 8 rebounds. solid.
I believe that's the Jalen Smith who was like he was a monster at Maryland. He was a big for them. Kind of like couldn't find a role early. I believe he was with Phoenix. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but he's moved around a little bit, but seems to be like he's found a little bit of a home.
That's he wears the goggles, right?
Believe so. The old Chris Sabo look.
Shad, either of those teams have any staying power as the East progresses on this season?
I think actually the Indiana Pacers have staying power. As long as they don't let their outside rumors, which have been running rampant, which is like all off season, beginning this season, about trading Miles Turner and Buddy Hield to the Lakers. As long as they keep the core of this team together, I think they will stay, in that playoff race. I think they have, excellent, a 1-2 combination in a Halliburton and a Matherin. And then Miles Turner, he's playing better than I thought he would. To me, he's never reached his potential. I still think he should be a bona fide all-star, but he's playing, well enough, to average, almost a double-double. And then like you're saying, some like this kid, Jalen Smith that nobody's ever heard of, he's like stepping up, becoming a very good power forward for those guys. So as long as like I said, they stay healthy, I think they could. I don't see them being at the top of the East whatsoever, but I see them maybe being like a 5th, 6th seed or so.
Now, there were some teams that have not gone off to the best of starts. So let's talk about the worst of the worst. Are we in agreement? Are we just going to give the Hornets a pass? Because as abysmal as they've been, it's kind of hard to play without LaMelo Ball.
No.
Yeah.
Flame them.
I mean, they got a good team. They have, guys like Rozier, Hayward, people like that are, guys that were, I think, not made the All-Star team, but been, kind of close. And they've always been that team that's like 7th, 8th seed playing game, whatever. And they're always a source of disappointment, I believe. So it's not like you're a contending team. All right, you lost your best player, and now all of a sudden you're horrible. You've been the source of disappointment for, I don't know, as long as Michael Jordan's been owning the team. So now you're, like the worst team in the league. Like, at least, play somewhere around 500 ball. You're 10 games under 500. So to me, it just seems like the team is not gelling, or they rely too much on one player. LaMelo Ball, great player, but they have pieces where they could at least, be close to the middle of the pack. So I don't give them a pass whatsoever. They've just been horrible ran organization. I think they're like almost like the Sacramento Kings of the East, if the Sacramento Kings were in the East for, the past 15 years.
Right.
Well, maybe with the Kings doing well this year, maybe the Hornets will finally turn the corner. MJ is always very good at collecting a lot of talent and not so much good with doing anything with it. Partner, what's our next? Ooh, Greg.
I just want to say, I'm not to counter shot. I think this, like, for me, this is an incomplete, because obviously the franchise is centered around LaMelo Ball. So for this immediate season, sure, it's a disappointment, but there's actually been like some slivers of like Kelly Oubre's look really good. Dennis Smith has actually played good ball. Dennis Smith, who got hurt as well. He's actually looked like he's kind of turned the corner right now. Like he's had some big games. So the adjustment without Miles Bridges, with all that, I just think I'm going to give them an incomplete so far. Like I don't think they're anything close to some kind of contender, but I wouldn't rule them out for the season completely yet. I think once Ball is back, I think you'll see a substantial improvement out of that team.
Partner, what's the next stink bomb?
Let's keep the stench in the East and talk about the Chicago Bulls. They took a significant James Harden step back from last year, sitting right now all the way in 11th place in the East. Does anybody know what's going on with the Chicago Bulls?
You know, Greg loves those James Harden references.
That was for you, buddy.
Well, isn't this just quickly? Isn't this just because we just were touched on the ball brother? I think this is again. I mean, I think not having Lonzo Ball is extended absence from him. Like I think they're struggling without that. I mean, he was a big piece, and I think underrated defensively as well. In the backcourt. So I mean, it seems to me that they're giving up way too many points too easily early so far. So I think that's somewhat to do with it. I do. Obviously, he's that's not crazy saying that he's their starting point guard, but I think that cumulative toll of him being away, you can get away for it for stretches, but I don't think they've found a complementary piece yet so far.
Yeah.
I just think this team has probably bad chemistry. I think maturity might be a big issue, as like when you hear like Zach LaVine talking about he should be in the game, and when he was on the bench in the fourth quarter, but I believe his team won. To me, that's kind of like a immature kind of statement, which means probably he doesn't respect his coach or doesn't care too much about winning. He's all about him. So maybe it's just simple thing as far as chemistry. Lonzo Ball, I mean, I am not a huge like Bulls fan that watches every game, but I heard, from Bulls fans that he's definitely the engine that makes that team go. And as far as getting people the ball in the right places and helping out defensively and just leading the team. But I'm almost starting to think you maybe have to trade somebody like a Zach LaVine. He's always seemed like the guy who never reaches potential. I almost say he's like maybe the most athletic person in the league. But just always, I don't know if it's maturity or just, I don't know what it is, but he just seems to always, his teams never seem to be as good as they should be.
Yeah, Chad, just on what you spoke about there too. I actually do think, like you said, Ball being out, I actually think that has an effect even mentally on LaVine, because Ball brings a more team-oriented approach to the game, right? I mean, he cares far more about dishing and setting people up and on the defensive end. So I think even from that perspective, that's not helping LaVine either. LaVine kind of right now doesn't have someone to keep him in check really, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm a believer in that. When you lose a glue guy and Lonzo does, Lonzo can fully affect a game without scoring double digits in points. You take that away, and then you have your gunners to argue over who's taking more shots. That can be an issue, no doubt. Any level of basketball.
Absolutely.
Maybe LaVine was maybe one young player that should not have gotten that big extension when they are all getting money dished out left and right.
Tough one.
There's another team in the East that's hanging around where the Bulls are, and that's Miami. And as much as a disaster as Brooklyn's been this year, and we'll get to them later on, but for Chicago and Miami both to be behind Brooklyn is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Miami is embarrassing, but I'm going to save my venom for later.
There you're incomplete.
I've seen enough of Miami to think. I wondered after last year. I kind of thought did they hit their high mark last year? I'm of the belief already. This is a team that they're getting into danger territory. Like they're going to have to make some kind of move. So I don't think this core as constituted is going to get their way out of this. Whether it's Lowry getting older, what do they do with Hero? Do they? I think there's issues. I think there's big issues for them long term here. Yeah, I don't think they're getting out of this. They might play better down the stretch, but I don't think they're anywhere near a contender like they were last year. I don't think that changes.
Yeah,
do you think they should move Bam to the 4 and get like a big?
No, I think they needed another scorer. Like I don't think Jimmy Butler is really a true scorer. He's kind of more just an effort guy who's kind of clutch, but I wouldn't rely on him to get me, 25, 30 a night really. Yeah. Tyler Hero is more of a 6-man. I would, try to get bring him off the bench. I know he's been, kind of starting for a good portion of the season. I think they're good. They always seem like they're pretty good defensively. It's just the offensive end, especially in the league now, where it seems like every team could score 120 points. Miami seems to be stuck. That team can maybe barely get over 100. So I think if they trade like one or two of their pieces, maybe like a Laurie, a Vincent or a Struess, somebody like that, or one of their young pieces, Jovic, and just try to get, another scorer, I think they could turn this around easily and be contenders again.
Yeah, Shad just on the same thing. They're actually, I just checked quickly, they're averaging the least points scored in the entire conference. So I mean, offense is definitely the issue. I don't think they have enough shot creators personally. And again, Lowry, I don't mean he's been horrible, but he's up there. He's not going to bring them the same creativity he once had.
No.
There's a couple teams out in the West that are also disappointing, and one of them routinely of late has always been one of our favorite hacky sacks to kick around. But let's be a little more positive first. The defending champs have been.
Oh no.
Give us a couple minutes. So we'll get to them. You'll have your chance at comeuppance.
He's ready.
Defending champs have been a little underwater. I mean, they got off. I thought when they started the season off, they looked like they hadn't missed a beat, and Jordan Poole was looking like someone that can take the ball handling responsibilities away from Steph finally. So Steph can just play off the ball and be just the scoring bonanza that he is. But that's not quite worked. I mean, we just talked about how bad Charlotte's been, and I remember a game not that long ago where Charlotte gave them a hell of a run. And they can't remember if they exactly won that game, but if they didn't, they definitely should have. So what's wrong with the champs?
They're too old. I mean, I was probably a year too early, but I told you got to trade, somebody like Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and get younger. Now I think the trade value has plummeted a lot, and you're not really going to get, too much, in between or in return. I think they should have, gave the keys to Poole and Curry and let those two other guys go. And I also don't think some of the young people your draft picks have panned out like they thought, like James Wiseman. He almost seems like a bust right now. Looks bad like when you could have had somebody like LaMelo Ball with that number 2 pick, but you got Wiseman. I think they're stuck in between. Like they're trying to at the same time be the contending team, but yet they have all these young pieces besides like their core 3 players. Like I said, I would have kind of blew it up. I know they won a championship last year, but I think that's maybe the most fraudulent championship I've seen in recent memory. I think they just got lucky with the matchups that they had, people being injured and, getting a team in the Celtics in the finals who just, imploded because they had like no leadership, no ball handling. I think this is the end of the Warriors. I think at best they're going to be in the play-in game. And I don't see them winning any playoff rounds. I think this is the end. Steph Curry, he's gonna get his. He's gonna score, 30 plus a night. He might even win the scoring title. But the others, like I said, Thompson, Draymond Green, those guys are pretty much done.
Wow.
Bold take.
Muerte. I'm not with Shad to that degree. Listen, they are getting older, and I think that is part the factor. The start there's championship hangover. Listen, they played an extra for an older team. They played an extra approximately 25 to 28 games more than the rest of the NBA. There's no doubt it's a shorter off season. I do agree. There's some concerns with Klay. Wiseman, who they were projecting big time on the defensive end, he's now in the G League. So the stat that sticks out, obviously they've allowed the most points per game in the league. So that's got to change. But I do think there's enough talent there still. I think you'll see a better product as the season goes on. I don't think you've seen the best of the Warriors yet. Do they win a title again? Not sure about that. But I'm not ready to throw the book at them like Shad. I think there's too much talent, young and old. Kerr's a good coach. I think there's time to figure this out.
I don't know. I'm kind of with Shad, like with the whole Clay thing. I think they need to, because I don't want his trade value to drop anymore. They need to get him out of there. He's like super streaky now. Like
he's just dead weight with that
Yeah.
contract. If his value drops any further.
But listen, is there a little Westbrook action going on this one? Like, I'm just looking at his numbers quickly. He's still shooting almost 38% from three. Like, okay, he's definitely not the same player, but he's come off two major injuries. And I mean, the guy's still averaging 17 a game. So it's not, I mean, I've seen worse. No, he's not having a great season. I'm not saying he is. But I mean, can we somewhat say, like, he may still not be at his best shape back? This argument was early in the season. I get it. He's getting older. He's had two major injuries. But the point is, I think if, like, you can find a less of a crucial role for Clay, I mean, he's still going to have his moments. He's going to be a lethal shooter. Like, yeah, maybe we don't want him playing 35 minutes a game, but I can't attribute every problem Golden State has to just him.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think the young kids, like, that's where they drew that line, where they're trying to, break in the young with the veteran core. I think you're going to have to see Kuminga, guys like him and Moody, take steps as year goes on. Then you can have Clay in more of again, he'll still be an immature role, but he doesn't have to be a lockdown, play 40 minutes guy.
Yeah.
So I'm just not ready to throw the book at them yet. I think it's too early.
James the Jet.
Yeah.
Who's our most favorite Western also disappointment?
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes. Yes.
Who are actually playing better now that LeBron isn't playing, but they're still terrible. I don't know.
A 3-game win streak just to get them to 5-10.
I don't know, man.
Terrible is being complimentary. Okay, let's call this what it is. This has been a disaster.
I don't even know where to start with them.
I know where to start. Let's ask Shad if they still have a chance to win the title.
I mean, I did bet on them at the beginning of the season.
It's not over.
You did not.
I did. I only bet $5, but I did bet on them.
I don't think they'd win the Chinese league.
I know it's a poorly constructed team. Like, they don't have enough shooting whatsoever. I think they're too beholden to LeBron. Like I said last year, I think it's time to kind of make LeBron less of dominant, on the ball player, and play more team ball. Those days are over. I think the last of his days of doing that was when they won the championship. Now you gotta, I don't know if you can do that or LeBron will accept that role, but you gotta say, like, hey, LeBron, like, you gotta, have the ball in your hands 50% less than you did before. I think Westbrook is doing great, off like this off the bench type of role that he was, and I think if he stayed on the bench, he could win the Sixth Man of the Year. I think that's something he could add to his resume. I think it's something he really wants. And Anthony Davis, he's been playing great as lately, but he just seems like he's a ticking time bomb. Like, he's going to get injured, in a matter of weeks for half the season. I think they definitely need to make some trades. Even if they get, like, cents on the dollar, they have to get, like, 2-3 more shooters or something. I think they're constructed for a team 10 years ago, that's pretty good defensively, athletic, but when you got people like Patrick Beverley on your team, it's just not the right way that you want to construct a team, especially around, like, if you're going to give LeBron the keys like he's always had.
Yeah.
Oh, please let me jump in on this one.
Greg, it's all you.
No, I've honestly, I've literally been harping on this for 2 years now. it's as Shad said, it is a very poorly constructed team. And if you saw early in the year, they put up their 3-point shooting. The numbers were like all time bad. I mean, you're talking like 20% with over 80. They can't shoot. I mean, listen, basketball is still that. Davis and LeBron when healthy, which is a big if. And even Westbrook. I've been on the camp that they're throwing too much blame his way. I still think that there's only so much that talent can overcome. They cannot shoot the ball. I mean, it's clear as day. I mean, if you're in a close game with them, it's almost like if you didn't have a legal defense and you're playing in biddy basketball and just let everyone shoot from the outside, it's really that bad. So there's no fear of anyone and I just looked quick, even LeBron, and which I always thought Anthony Davis was trying to shoot too many threes himself. Those two are both shooting 21 and 23% from three themselves. I'm not blaming them for, obviously they're still very good players, but you get the point. When those guys are the core of their scoring and neither one of them is shooting 25% from three, they don't really have anyone who is great from three. I mean, that's it right now. I mean, Austin Reeves, kind of crazy, and he's a nice little player. He's kind of saving their backside lately.
Yeah,
he's the only one who can hit shots.
Yeah.
But again, Austin Reeves should not be your third player. He's a nice off the bench guy, maybe develop into a starter, but it's just they need to blow this up. This is not getting much better. No way. No chance.
Yeah, it's funny you said LeBron shooting 20-something% from three. I feel like some games he'll have a Steph Curry jersey underneath his jersey, and just like he'll just be chucking like the whole game. And I'm just like, stop shooting the ball. You can't shoot.
Carmelo.
And again, obviously we know that was never the core of his game, but he wasn't shooting under 24% from there either.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm looking as well. He's still jacking up over 7 a game. That's a lot of possessions that are no points.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And with no other threat from outside, why? But yeah, let him shoot. I would
too.
Yeah. The end. Good night.
Partner, any more thoughts on the Los Angeles Lakers?
No. We've got a whole season left to dig their grave even deeper.
All right. With that being said, we'll be back, gang. We got to go pay some bills, but hit us up on socials, Hoops Boys Pod, at both Instagram and Twitter. Chop it up with us until we come back. Hoops Boys Pod. And we're back. Welcome back to the Hoops Boys Pod. Partner, what we got? What we're talking about right now?
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on these stories that never seem to die this season. And one is the head coach that for a head coach that just went to the finals and hasn't even touched the sideline this year, he just keeps finding his way into headlines in this season so far. We didn't know what was going on with his suspension. We couldn't figure out why. It's like, why not just fire him? Or why just have a shorter suspension, then bring him back later so you still make your point? But they just Celtics put Ime Udoka on the season-long suspension. And sure enough, and Shad kind of called it, the Nets came a-calling, and he had a deal all lined up to go in. And sure enough, then that fell apart too. So at this point, I just think Ime Udoka is just in coaching purgatory right now. And he is not going to get another job for quite a while. Unless, of course, the Nets are just desperate and want to bring him in anyway. Shad, you kind of called your shot. You got first dibs on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll get a job, before next season starts. I really think he's going to get like one of 3 places. He's going to be either with the Nets, the 76ers, or with the Spurs next year. That's just my gut feeling as far as head coach. He's too good of a coach, at least that we think he is. I don't think a coach that made it to a finals with a team that will had, chemistry issues, previously that kind of underachieved, and brought him to the finals. I don't think, many teams are going to just, not look at that and say, let's not bring him in. Like I said, it's a very unfortunate situation, but he's probably a top 5, definitely top 10 coach in the league right now, and he's better than a lot of these bums out here. So he'll get a second chance with one of these good teams. He's better than a coach like a Doc Rivers, I would say. So
It wouldn't be a Who's Boys episode if Shad didn't get a shot in at Doc Rivers. Greg, agree, disagree?
I mean, I'm just, there's still so much gray area to this. I mean, the Nets situation, and I get it. They didn't want the negative PR. It's just tough. We don't know. Are the Celtics doing him a favor by not revealing as much as happened? Are they, there's so much out there that we still don't know. So I feel it's a really hard situation. What is interesting to me though, is just gut feeling. I don't know any of this. I feel like what was accused must have been in their mind pretty bad, because they were actually going to let him go to the Nets with no compensation whatsoever. So, I mean, yeah, you could make the argument again without knowing the details. It's tough to say, right? I mean, my guess is just what we talked about earlier off air is, he probably, I'm guessing he's on the sideline this year. I don't know if any team wants that PR hit, because that is a big deal. My guess is he gets back in the game in some kind of role next year, but I would guess he's on the sideline for the rest of the year.
And beyond?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, timing is everything. And quite frankly, when the next scandal happens for someone else, and I'm not even kidding, it's, takes the attention away from Udoka.
Last guy.
That's probably when, the vultures aren't out there ready to, that's how this works in this world, right? So
Yeah.
wait for someone else to really mess up, cool down the temperature there, and then probably teams won't be as hesitant, if I had to guess.
And ironically, I think that's a great segue to the next person we're going to mention, Kyrie Irving, who kind of stole his thunder with his moment. Our favorite aluminum foil wearing conspiracy theorist. And it was going to end up on the Nets, but Kyrie stole his thunder. And like we said off air, like the Nets can't handle all of that PR nightmare. So that's not going to happen. At least I don't think this season. But how do we feel about Kyrie? Partner, we can start with you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's no wonder why they're in the basement. They get wrapped up in the Udoka thing. Kyrie is just a walking controversy anytime he opens the door. I mean, I kind of didn't want to follow the story too much, just because in this hyper sensationalized world that we live in, but at the same time, I guess it probably was a pretty cut and dry situation that he just didn't want to do his research about ahead of time. And then I guess we talked about off air that I guess he was just stubborn and didn't want to apologize, which on one hand, I kind of get, like, if you do something out of ignorance and everyone comes after you want in your head, I'm probably not going to want to apologize anyway. I'll just be like, listen, I made a mistake, move on. But I guess if you're a professional athlete, you're a famous person, you don't really have that luxury to just say, shut up and move on.
Right. Greg, how we feel about Kyrie?
I wonder this. There's been proven throughout sports, in any sport, you can have somewhat of a malcontent, who doesn't deal well with the media, who doesn't deal with, and, brings it as a player. I have to wonder privately if, like, Durant in particular, I don't know how, if I'm him or one of his teammates, you're just not tired of all of it now. It has to be exhausting, right? It almost feels like, to me, you're just waiting for the other shoe to fall. Like, what's next now? Like, what's the next scandal controversy, right? So listen, if you could tell me, and I don't know this, I'm not privy to this, if his teammates, behind closed doors are like, hey, we're fully behind him, we can win with him. I can make a case for that, but there has to be a point where it's just got to be exhausting for the whole franchise. Whether you like Steve Nash or not, I read something recently where one of Nash's last games, apparently the scout said that he was courtside and heard Kyrie had called off like 10 straight play calls from Nash that he ignored. Listen, how do you win like that? Even if you don't like the coach, you hash that out behind closed doors. You can't function as a team like that, and for me, it's just like, okay, he had troubles with Durant. He had troubles with LeBron. These are some of the best players in the history of the world. I just wonder for a franchise. I know if I was the Nets, I'd want to just be done with this. It's a constant hovering over their head. What's next with him? So that's just my take on it. It's, enough's enough. The drama's gotten to be a lot.
Yeah. Shad, the best for last.
I don't know if it's the best. I don't think that Kyrie genuinely has like a mean bone in his body, but he is like the guy who thinks he's the smartest person in the room and tries think outside the box just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Just kind of like started off like the flat earth thing, like, okay, the earth is flat, like what's your goal for it? Like, is there an end game to it or something? Kind of like another thing with coaching. I think one day he said like, oh, there's no coach on the team. Like one day I'm the coach, one day Kevin Durant's the coach, like one day this person's the coach, like just saying things like that. And, thinking that, he could, outsmart, LeBron and then he can win a championship, on his own. And then, this thing about the film, the documentary he was talking about. He just seems like he has, I want to say not a filter, but he's trying to be like that guy in the room that just says outrageous stuff and he thinks he's smarter than everybody else and it gets him into trouble. So, like I said, I don't think he's not a mean person, but it just comes off like you're an idiot. Like just say less or, think about it before you say it, take more time to research about it and think like, what are the consequences? What are like the repercussions of what I'm going to say? Say it to yourself out loud. Like, how does it sound? And that's kind of like just my life advice to him. Not a bad guy, but, he's not like, an Antonio Brown or anything like that, but he or Kanye, but he might be just below them. He's not there yet. He just
level 8.
What'd you say?
He's level 8. They're on level 10.
Yeah, he's probably level 8. Like those guys are, real crazy. I think Kyrie is just one of those philosophers, like thinks too much, kind of crazy, and he's just maybe just a weird guy who just tries to seem smarter than he really is.
Maybe he's just a lonely guy and needs a buddy.
I think he's lost a few of them this year. I think he's pissed a lot of people off.
That might be fair.
But no, I agree with Chad. I don't. Even the last controversy, the one thing like Adam Silver after the meeting with him, and I fully believe this. He said, I don't think for 1 second he's actually anti-Semitic. I bet he's not. I don't think at all. He just, like Chad said, his ego and his trying to, when someone tells him he's wrong, oh no, I know better than the coach. I know better than LeBron. And I think that's it as well. And no, I don't think he's some racist. No, I don't think any of that. He needs to grow up some. That's really, it's not all about you, Kyrie. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, happier times ahead. Let's preview some of the merriest time of the year, the official start of the NBA season. That is the wonderful slate of Christmas Day games. Follow us and get in the conversation on Twitter and Instagram at HoopsBoysPod. And we will be right back with some ho 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 holiday cheer. Welcome back to Hoops Boys Pod as we leave out cookies for Santa and pour a nice cold glass of milk to unwrap presents. Hopefully, the ambiance of the holiday season will keep us joyful enough to get past the eventual disappointment of potentially seeing the Knicks lose yet again on Christmas Day. But the sliver of hope, I think, would be that Philadelphia, everyone will still be out, much as they were against the Nets, and maybe the Knicks will have a relatively easier path to a potential Christmas Day holiday victory. A guy can dream, can
he? That'd be a great present.
The next game up after that is our aforementioned favorite kicking bag, the Los Angeles Lakers, playing Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. Shaddillac, what you got on this game?
I think it's going to be a very interesting game, more than people think, just because I think that you're going to have a couple players put on a show. I think Luka's going to have one of those big games where he gets like a 40-point triple-double. And then I think you're going to have LeBron, if he's back, or Westbrook, just try to prove to Luka, like, no, I'm still in my prime. I can hang with you. And they might even get like a triple-double, like a 30-point triple-double. I expect, kind of the Mavericks to, win in the end, just because they're the home team. And then they got, a couple shooters that could, hit a game winner for you in the end. But I expect it to be a very competitive game. I expect it to be, probably two players, from this game is going to have the best stats of the night.
That usually tends to be the case between garbage teams, right? Those are the ones that put up the best numbers.
Wow, you're calling the Mavs garbage?
Well, they're not garbage, but 9-7. They're not particularly great this season either.
Yeah, they're probably as good as expected. Like I said, I think last year was fool's gold.
Yeah.
That's just more Luka being the best player in the universe.
Second
Literally.
So the next game on Christmas Day that I'm excited for is a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Bucks versus the Celtics. I think both of these teams have MVP caliber players on their team, and Jason Tatum and Giannis. And I think one of them is going to end up getting it at the end of the year. These two teams are going to be battling for the top spot in the East for this entire season, and I think this game is going to be somewhat of a proving ground for both teams. They're going to show out, so you're going to expect big nights from both Giannis and Tatum, and I think this is going to be the best game of the night.
Could it be another matchup or not matchup, a preview of another Eastern Conference final matchup?
Yeah, I think so. And they play each other again in February, so we're gonna get another look at them battling each other real soon.
So Memphis and Golden State, which I think personally that's tough to follow, Milwaukee, Boston, but I think looking at the ticket prices, lowest is $200 on Christmas night, which is impressive. This has become quite a rivalry as well. Memphis arrived on the scene 2 years ago when unexpectedly they beat Golden State in the playing game, which I don't think many of us expected that then. Last year, they were trying to climb to the mountaintop, and Golden State said, nope, not yet, young bucks. And they took care of them in 6 games. So, I mean, this has become a nice little rivalry. And I think it'll be somewhat of a statement game for Christmas. Teams are going to bring out their best. We'll find out more, in particular, about Golden State. It'll be a good, again, litmus test. Where are they? Have they straightened the ship a little bit? Can they compete? Or if, is this a preview of changes that need to be made going forward? So I actually think in Golden State's case, this will be somewhat of an important game. I mean, there's 82 of them. There's no one that's usually more important. But for the future going forward for Golden State, I think it will be. Let's see where they stand up against the better teams, and will they have righted the ship in a month?
If Memphis comes out and really smacks them in the teeth, will that ring true to Shad's premonition that it's time to dismantle the Warriors?
I mean, any event is one game, and it's hard to say. But I think I'm looking at Golden State, and I'm sure the front office is as well. It's give them the next month now. There's championship hangover. How do they look over the next 4 weeks? And when they have a big game against someone like Memphis, which is obviously like the last 2 years, a very high potential. This is someone you'd have to go through if they had any chance at a repeat. So I think that's be a good barometer for where they are and what they may need to do going forward.
To cap off the evening, as we spoke on earlier, we're very impressed by Utah's run to first place in the West right now. But assuming experience wins out and some more solidified teams retake the top spot out West, the 2 and the 3 teams are playing each other to close out Christmas Day. That is the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. And much to Shad's point about Luka going for the proverbial ape shit path and dropping triple double on the lowly Lakers, I think Nikola Jokic could very much put up a huge night on top of DeAndre Ayton. And
I can definitely see that.
I could see this much like Milwaukee and Boston potentially deciding who's the Christmas night, potentially deciding who's the top dog to come out of the East. I think this Christmas night matchup could also decide who's the top dog to come out of the West.
I agree. That's the game. That's usually what Christmas days are for, right? Like they put those really good matchups that everybody want to see that could be potential matchups in the future. Just the preview.
Show out.
Yeah.
What would be our biggest bold takes after the Christmas games are settled?
Hmm.
I mean, you get towards the new year, and I think it's a good time where, like I said with Golden State, it's you can still, this is still kind of first month-ish, right? Once you get to the new year, now it's like, okay, you're getting towards halfway through the season. I think it's kind of a good time to really assess where you're at, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's not, any of these teams. I mean, we saw, was it the Celtics last year? Remember the Celtics last year at this point?
They started off slow.
We were talking, do they trade Jaylen Brown? Do they trade Tatum? A month and a half later, they rolled off. I still think all these teams need a little more time. It's still early.
Yeah.
I don't think Golden State makes the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like not even.
I get your point. I think they are good enough to make the play. But I mean, listen, season's gonna go south. But
I think they probably make the play-in game, but they don't make the playoffs.
Looking now, I still think they will. I personally do.
Will the Jazz make the playoffs?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be Golden State in the play-in.
That'd be wild.
I don't think the Jazz. I don't think they'll make the play-in either. I don't. That's just me.
Well, I will say, based on the teams in the West right now, if the Jazz were to fall completely out, that is probably the best option to make room for the Warriors to get back in it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, none of these. Yeah, I was just going to say Portland's had a nice start. I don't expect them to go 6-50 the rest of the way, but I don't think Portland's anything special either. I mean, right? I mean, that's what I don't think it's hard for Golden State to get in here. I don't see like formidable competition. Is Minnesota that great?
Right. I mean, it's fair to criticize Portland, but I still think if Dame's on the floor, he gets a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, but I can also say that just me, but I can say that for Golden State. I mean, they're the defending champs. They get more of a benefit of the doubt than them, right? I mean,
Well, not if Father Time catches up to them, they don't.
That's true.
I would say if, and this is a big if, because Phoenix is still very good. If Denver can come out and put an authoritative type of victory down on the Suns, I think that would be a changing of the guard for.
Denver's not been that.
West.
Like Denver
Yeah.
has a negative point differential, right? I'm not like cutting on Denver, but Jamal Murray can, he's going to need time to get back into form too. But they've not been. I like Denver. Don't get me wrong, I do, but they've not been anything special either here. Chad, what do you think about your Clippers? By the way, they've been interesting. What do you think about them?
I think they're starting to get their act together. What bothers me is like the Kawhi situation. I'm not sure if he's still hurt or if he's just, he's on cruise control till later down the stretch. But I think he needs to play just for like team chemistry purposes. I also think that they need another true big man. Zubac is okay, but I think they're trying to get the Miles Turner or a couple other bigs they've been talking about. I think they're kind of a big away from being a legit contender because I think they have too many wings and not enough bigs. Seems like every guy like 1 through 10 besides maybe Zubac, John Wall, and Reggie Jackson play, the wing position, and they just need to get rid of a couple of those players.
I've watched about like 3 or 4 of their games that, like, again, these are just the nights I've seen. They look like they play different games within a game. Like they'll look great for 20 minutes. I will say one of the games I watched, and I can't remember off the top of the head, they got way too 3 happy. So the fourth quarter rolled around, and they started jacking from 3, and it's like, wait a minute, they didn't need to, But
Yeah.
Walls for the games I've looked, Walls look pretty good, which I think is a good sign for you guys.
Yeah.
These look pretty good. Like, yeah. But you still take them as the favorite out there, or you're need to be time to.
I mean, I do just because I don't think there's a real favorite in the West. It's not like the East where I feel like there's like really 3 good teams and the rest of them are just kind of pretenders. I don't really think there's a favorite out in the West. So I do. I think they got the most depth. They played the past, couple years like without their best players in clutch situations. So they get used to that. Plus they had some addition, like a big addition, like a John Wall. So I just think they have a great mix of players.
Yeah, if they're healthy, I could see that.
A great coach in Tyronn Lue. And I just think long as like they don't get like that injured, I think they have the best team out in the West, even though the record may not show it right now.
I'm kind of high on, and I think New Orleans is going to be a factor this year. I do. I'm not saying they win it, but they're like, another thing. I just looked at another thing. They're like point differentials, like second best in the entire NBA, which I wouldn't have guessed that.
Behind only Phoenix.
Yep.
Oh, and Cleveland. I'm sorry.
Oh, is Cleveland higher too?
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
Cleveland
But hey, point is
actually
that's a
number 1.
because they're deep. They're a deep team. They can withstand. We saw it last year. They didn't have Zion the whole year, and they still made a pretty decent run. Very deep team.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no one's beating the Knicks, so I mean, no big deal. We just win the title easy. No big deal.
Yeah. Well, gang, you heard it here first. The Knicks are winning the championship. But thanks for kicking it with us. Talking about the Christmas games. I hope y'all getting prepared for Turkey Day. And till next time, reach out to us on our socials, at Hoops Boys Pod, on both Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to our guest experts, Shad and Greg. And until next time, Hoops Boys Pod. Peace.
Kobe.